Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pooja Malik, and on behalf of the Energy and Resource Institute and Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, I would like to welcome you all to be the part of today's thematic session titled Improving Air Quality in Cities: Global Issues, Local Solutions, and Best Practices. We all can agree that air pollution and its impact on human health, ecology, and climate is currently one of the most concerning challenges in India and around the world. The National Clean Air Program, commonly known as NCAP, stresses that sharing best practices and increased cooperation with national and international agencies is critical to develop effective air quality management plans. As the title of today's event suggests, the agenda of today's event lies in the same periphery. We are looking forward to have a prolific discussion on air pollution as a global challenge and on sharing global best practices that can be potentially adopted in Indian context. Further into the session, we will be focusing on clean air action for effective air quality management with our panel of distinguished experts. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General, the Energy and Research Institute, to kickstart today's event with her welcoming remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Pooja. Thanks for your introduction to the subject. And I'm very delighted to participate in this thematic session on improving air quality in cities, global issues, local solutions, and best practices that is hosted under the WSTS 2022. As we all know, with unprecedented growth in economic and industrial activities, air pollution has emerged as a concerning risk factor in India, affecting public health and atmospheric environment. Today, while I speak to you, being in New Delhi, every year, the beginning of October is something that the city is going to choke, and we are really worried about every moment we are looking into our mobile phones, what is the AQI? And it is that during that time, our next generation with small children, they are talking about, is Delhi the place to sit or settle? Are we giving the right kind of air to our children? So that is becoming a subject of concern year after year, and government also comes in action. There are task forces set up. The industrial houses or the small and medium industries, they get closed. There are lot of restrictions, you can't run the generators and so on. But then it is that one needs to know from where the pollution is actually coming. We put the entire blame on parali burning, rice, paddy, agriculture residue burning, but is that the only reason, or there are many more? And then what kind of local approaches we need to solve to really speaking look for long-term solutions, because those, I call them quick fix solutions, that you only look at what needs to be done today, and we are really not looking at the problem which comes year after year. So I'm very glad today that we have a galaxy of eminent personalities who are working in this area. And I'd like to welcome Jonathan, Head of Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Of course, they are working with TERI for many years. I should say we started collaborating with STC in the last century. So TERI is what it is, and I like to acknowledge their help all the time. Ms. Yong Ying, Project Officer, International Cooperation Development, Swiss Embassy, Beijing. Dr. Valentin, Senior Program and Science Officer, Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Professor Archana Kumar, Behavioral Change Expert, Associate Professor in Lady Evelyn College. Mr. Ashish Tiwari, Secretary, Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change at Government of Uttar Pradesh. Ms. Prarthana Borah, Director of India Carbon Disclosure Project. Professor Anant Mohan from AIMS, and Mr. Vikrant Gupta, Senior Executive Editor, Sports with TV Today Network. To this very significant session, I'd like to add further that according to Central Pollution Control Board monitoring record, 78% of Indian cities violates national ambient air quality standards, and 132 cities has been identified as non-attainment cities in India, which has consistently violated limits for PM10 and PM2.5 since the last 5 years. To address this growing issue of air pollution in India, MOEF and CC has launched National Clean Air Program NCAP with an aim to reduce the PM concentration by 20 to 30% by 2024, keeping 2017 as base year for comparison of pollutant concentration. Now, this is very significant because when we say 20 to 30%, it is while we are still developing, there are more industries coming up. So really speaking, we are talking of reduction over 2017 level. And therefore, in actual terms, it's going to be far more than 20 to 30%. The Clean Air Project in India, supported by SDC, aims to support the Government of India in its initiative to improve the air quality, resulting in better health and well-being of its residents. Well, while we say it is for India, I'll say that the impact of air pollution, they are not restricted. They don't have national or international boundaries. They are going to have impact on the entire planet. So thank you so much. Once again. As a part of the CAP India project, a thematic track, improving air quality in cities, global issues, local solutions, and best practices, is organized in WSDS 2022 to discuss future air quality scenarios for developing countries such as ours and exchange experience and best practices. The objective of the thematic track is aligned with NCAP as it stresses on sharing best practices and increased cooperation with international agencies as critical element for overcoming and tackling air pollution. Air pollution, as we all know, is not confined by national or international boundaries, as I said before, and hence for effective control of air pollution, it is equally important to share national and international experiences, including the constraint, progress, and best practices. By promoting the practice sharing of learning, challenges, and technological proficiency, the global stakeholders can collectively build upon the existing best practices, scientific knowledge, and effective policies for combating air pollution. Event also discussed the air quality and human health linkages, achievements and challenges due to the air pollution and tools needed to bring behavioral changes in community on air quality and related issues. While most of us are aware of the ill effects of air pollution on our health and environment, this knowledge rarely translates to concrete action and changes. In a way, I'll say we don't stop driving cars knowing very well the kind of pollution, the impact on air pollution. So really speaking, we look forward to someone else. We blame someone else for causing the pollution and not ourselves. And we need to realize that every small step taken by each one of us will help us cleaning this environment. We have an esteemed panel of experts and professionals with national and international experience. And without taking more of your time, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Ajay Shankar to take it further, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving a perfect start to this event with your insightful remarks. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Jonathan Demenge, Head of Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, to kindly proffer the inaugural address. Over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Pooja Malik. Dear Dr. Vibha Dhawan, dear panelists, dear participants, good afternoon and welcome. It's an immense pleasure to co-introduce this session on improving air quality in cities, global issues, local solutions, and best practices. And the first question is, do we ever need an introduction? When we already had the best introduction during the inaugural session of the World Sustainable Development Summit 2022 edition. The Honorable Prime Minister Modi reminded us that sustainable development is about the health of the people and the health of our environment, which are intricately linked, because in the end, we are just as healthy as the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. In the inaugural session, Dr. Vibhadawan also stressed that we have to take care of our planet in order to sustain ourselves. And Mrs. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the UN, reminded the scale of the challenges lying in front of us when it comes to climate change and the SDGs. And she rightly said that we need an avalanche of solutions. And the US Special Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, mentioned that no country is sustainable and that pollution is killing 10 million people on Earth every year. And indeed, air pollution can be localized, but it is a global issue, affecting nearly 90% of the population, of the global populations. And cities worldwide have been fighting air pollution, often with some success. So this is the reason why we are here today, to talk about action, to talk about solutions. We're here to talk about a global issue that affects us all, although to some different degree. Because where you are born, where you live, where you work, and how much you are able to protect yourself does make a difference. Clean air should not be the privilege of the few. So air pollution is also about environmental justice. And air pollution also has huge economic impacts on food production, on food security, on learning capacities of our children. In fact, can we ever conceive development without clean air, when clean air is so much constitutive of development? So good practices do exist in India and elsewhere. And it is these good practices that we wanted to bring here today, so that we can learn from them, that we can discuss them. The Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, the institution I represent, is present in 35 priority countries, is working through multilateral institutions, and is also active on global challenges, such as food security, water, health, or climate change and the environment. Our global program on climate change and the environment is particularly active in 3 regions of the world: Latin America, China, and South Asia. And in these 3 regions, we do run projects on clean air. And by the way, this is the first time that SDC Delhi and SDC Beijing have a joint event. So thank you very much for joining us. Our focus is climate change, mitigation as well as adaptation. But we also work on air pollution because we see it as a priority, as we have to address immediate needs as well as medium-term issues, and because air pollution and climate change are so interconnected. Some of the air pollutants, such as black carbon, are the same that are responsible for climate change. And this is the reason we have organized this session, along with TERI, one of the 2 implementing partners of the Clean Air Project India, the other implementing partner being the Paul Scherrer Institute. CAP India was launched during the World Sustainable Development Summit in 2020. It is closely aligned with the India's National Clean Air Program, and it is implemented in 4 cities: Lucknow, Kanpur, Nasik, and Pune. So we are blessed today with the participation of eminent speakers from Central Pollution Control Board, from TERI, from the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation in Beijing, from UN Environment and the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which Switzerland and India have joined, and both India and Switzerland actually currently sit on its board. And we are blessed with the participation of brilliant academics, doctors, journalists, the director of the Carbon Disclosure Project India, as well as Sri Ashish Tiwari, Secretary of the Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change at the Government of Uttar Pradesh. We are all going to present the perspective, challenges, and successes when it comes to clean air and air pollution. A special thanks to TERI for organizing this event and to Dr. Vibhadawan for blessing us with her welcoming remarks. So thank you for being part of this event, for being part of the clean air movement, for what you are doing every day on the clean air front, and what you are going to share with us today. I wish us all a very successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jonathan, for your enlightening address. We will now commence our first session, which focuses on sharing global experiences on air quality management. The session will be moderated by Mr. Ajay Shankar, Distinguished Fellow, the Energy and Resources Institute. I will request Mr. Ajay Shankar to please proceed with the panel discussion. Please go ahead, sir. Thank you.
I consider it a privilege to be moderating this session on national and international experience with regard to efforts at getting clean air. Because I think that in India, clean air is a health crisis in many, many cities. And I'm so glad that it is getting more attention, more analysis, and more discussion. So I consider it a privilege to be moderating this session. I also believe that this particular part of today's program, which is of looking at national and international experience, is very important because we in India are actually struggling because the Clean Air Program has talked of a reduction of 25–30% over a few years. The ground situation requires that we get clean, healthy air back as soon as possible, not over a prolonged period of time. So there is certainly a very strong case for enhancing our ambition level and really saying that, say, by 25 we will get clean air most days of the year in most of our cities. And having that ambition is one thing, but having a pathway to achieving that ambition is a far tougher challenge. And I think today's discussion will certainly help many of us think along better lines, think constructively and creatively. So without taking more time, I will begin by asking Dr. Gupta, who is from our Central Pollution Control Board, who's been closely associated with the whole effort at improving air quality in Indian cities, to give us his overview, his insights, and his ideas. Dr. Gupta, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. I congratulate TERI to organize the event of World Sustainable Development Summit 2022, particularly the topic of improving air quality in cities, global issues, local solutions, and best practices. In fact, efforts towards air quality management has been intensified with the decreased concerns about rising pollution levels and awareness of its adverse health effects. A holistic air quality management policy based on strong scientific insights is crucial for ensuring desired air quality levels. Visible effects of higher levels of particulate matter are being addressed by scientifically driven policies at the local, national, and regional scales. Non-attainment cities based on the air quality levels exceeding national ambient air quality standards have been identified based on the data during 2015 to 19, and few additional million plus cities have been recommended by 15th Finance Commission for focused air quality management. With wide variation of sources and metrology, there are regional and city-specific variations in our country, which demands for city-specific action plans along with national policies. City action plans have been rolled out for implementation in 132 identified cities. These plans specify systematic workflow to develop an air quality management plan, starting with an assessment of air quality, detailed analysis such as source apportionment study, emission inventory study, and development of effective mitigation measures. City air quality plans also stipulate timelines and responsible agencies for implementation of identified actions. While ground implementation of these plans are overseen by district level committee, quarterly progress reports approved by 6-member Air Quality Monitoring Committee headed by Principal Secretary Environment is reviewed by CPCB. State pollution control boards and urban local bodies have signed Memorandum of Understanding with Institute of Repute for technical inputs to air quality management. In order to achieve the Honorable Prime Minister's vision for improving air quality in more than 100 cities, 132 identified cities are being provided necessary support and guidance for implementation of city-specific action plans under National Clean Air Program and under 15th Finance Commission grants. Implementation of city Action plans in 132 identified cities have led to deployment of technologies to monitor air quality, pinpoint pollution hotspots, reduce emission, and inspire action at a national scale. Emission inventory and source apportionment studies are being carried out for 132 cities by State Pollution Control Board and urban local bodies, and 25 cities have been finalized for close monitoring by an expert committee constituted by CPCB. These studies shall function as model studies in terms of data collection, modeling, and validation of source apportionment and carrying capacity studies. Dashboard to monitor implementation of National Clean Air Program called as a Prana is being undertaken in collaboration with GIZ for monitoring of implementation of National Clean Air Program. It will support tracking of physical as well as financial status of city air action plan implementation and disseminate information on air quality management efforts under NCAP to public. Information related to various activities and their progress under NCAP by various stakeholders shall be available on this portal, which will help in future policy decisions. Cities are now in the process of finalizing micro-level planning of actions approved under City Action Plan, and adequate technical knowledge is crucial for estimating sector-specific targets and to implement low emission development strategies in the cities. Capacity building of stakeholders agencies such as State Pollution Control Boards, urban local bodies, and state transport, agricultural department, and resource pooling from national and international experts on air quality, modeling, and clean technologies through such programs shall facilitate formulation of robust air action plan in conjunction with state and regional action plans. In order to tackle air pollution emergency response system is being developed for the cities, and public grievance redressal system is also being prepared. Given the critical situation in Delhi and NCR, a multitude of actions have been undertaken since 2017. Efforts have resulted in gradual improvement in air quality levels with 30% and 38% reduction in PM 2.5 and PM 10 levels in 2020 as compared to 16. Under NCAP, these efforts are being extended to all non-attainment cities as components of city action plans. Further, based on city-specific source apportionment studies, source-specific priority actions will be initiated across all cities. Out of 132 identified cities, decrease in PM10 concentrations were observed in 96 cities, whereas increase in PM10 concentrations were observed in 36 cities during 2020-21 as compared to levels during 2019-20. This indicates the efforts of the all stakeholders, State Pollution Control Board, urban local bodies, and all others. Building upon monitoring, source apportionment, enforcement, and mitigation experiences, a shift towards airside management is being envisaged. Capacity building of stakeholder agencies and resource pooling from national and international experts on air quality modeling and clean technologies is necessary for tackling air pollution. State and regional action plans in conjunction with city action plans with local hotspot actions shall be implemented and periodically improvised to address local as well as regional contributors to air pollution. In the spirit of the session theme, this is a good time to explore new knowledge on best practices, launching new partnerships and platforms, facilitating policy dialogues to create reforms, and implementing integrated regional as well as city level air action plans. Thank you well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for this comprehensive overview. Clearly, the building blocks for rapid improvement have been put in place, and that's quite heartening. And So is the fact that we have achieved a 30% improvement in air quality. And I presume most of it has happened over the last 2-3 years rather than the 4-5 year period that you've covered. So thank you very much. I know you have to go somewhere for a meeting, so we appreciate that. May I request Dr. Anju Goel from TERI to give us a presentation on the SCAP findings of 4 cities, which I think will bring the discussion to a more granular level. So, Dr. Anju, please.
Thank you, sir. I'll be sharing my screen. I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, it is, please.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say thank you to Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation for supporting Clean Air project in India. The overall aim of the project is to support India's effort to improve people's health and well-being through better air quality while contributing to environment and climate change mitigation. There are 2 consortium working as a project team in close coordination on the project, Implementation Consortium and Research Network. Implementation Consortium is led by TERI, while Research Network is led by Paul Scherrer Institute. The project is of a duration of 4 years and it started in the year 2019. It primarily focuses on 4 cities, Kanpur and Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh and Nasik and Pune in Maharashtra. The project activities are broadly being divided under 3 outcomes. The outcome 1 focuses on improved data measurement and analysis on clean air. Outcome 2 focuses on enhanced capacities of city and state authorities to implement clean air action plans and policies. And outcome 3 focuses on generation of awareness among all sections of society about clean air action. Here the flowchart represents the project activities under 3 different outcomes. So under outcome 1, the activities are revision of protocols for source apportionment, calibration, and monitoring network. So revision of protocols for source apportionment is jointly being carried out by EPFL and PSI. EPFL is revising the protocols based on the consultation and literature review, while PSI is bringing in their experience of a real-time advanced source apportionment methods. Revision of a protocols for calibration of air quality monitoring equipment is done by our partner institute IIT Kanpur, and optimization of the monitoring network protocol is being defined by our partner institute EPFL. Further, source apportionment for the 4 cities is being conducted as a part of a project. Implementation Consortium is conducting source apportionment study by following conventional method, while a research network is performing a real-time advanced source apportionment study in Lucknow and Pune. And the aim of carrying out source apportionment by these 2 different methodology is basically to see how well the results comes, and in order to come up with the advanced methodology or a more accurate source apportionment study protocol that can further be applied to the Indian cities. On the basis of source apportionment studies, existing clean air action plans will be strengthened. After strengthening of the clean air action plans, key strategies will be identified for the pilot demonstrations in the 4 focused cities. Also, the monitoring, reporting and verification framework for the Clean Air Action Plan will be developed jointly by TERI and EASA. Under outcome 3, capacity of the local stakeholders will be built not only on the conventional source apportionment methods, but as well as on the real-time source apportionment methods. Also, the awareness will be generated among all sections of society. Now coming on to the results under different outcomes. So here I am presenting the work that is being carried out by our partner institute EPFL on optimization of air quality monitoring sites in 4 cities. So to optimize the monitoring network, first we looked at the multiple objectives of National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Program, and these multiple objectives are broadly classified under 3 heads: monitoring population exposure, measurement for compliance with the national standards, and the source characterization. After categorizing the multiple objectives in these 3 broad heads, extensive primary surveys were conducted in these 4 cities to look into the micro-environmental conditions around the existing monitoring stations and to map the existing monitoring stations along with these 3 broad objectives. On the basis of the primary surveys, gaps were identified in the existing monitoring network, and suggestions and the framework was provided to the regulatory body to further optimize their existing monitoring networks. So the framework that is being suggested is also valid across the country and can be implemented in other Indian cities. We all know emission inventory is the first step for carrying out the source apportionment. So under the project, the emission inventory is developed for the 4 focused cities. And here the graph represents PM10 emissions, source contributions in PM10 emissions in the 4 focused cities. We clearly see that the major sources contributing to PM10 emissions varies from city to city. For example, in Nasik, industry is a major contributor, while in Lucknow and Kanpur, road dust comes out to be major contributor. In Pune, road dust and the transport is a major source which is contributing to PM10 emissions. It clearly signifies that a single solution cannot work all across the cities. So we need to customize solutions as per the local conditions. And once the solutions are being customized, similar solutions can be adopted in the other Indian cities which are having a similar source contributions. We all know in NCAP, Mr. Gupta has also mentioned that under the NCAP, the government of India has identified 132 non-attainment cities. Now, city governments are developing clean air action plan for these cities. As a next step, there is a requirement of a monitoring, reporting and a verification framework to track the implementation progress of these clean air action plan at the granular levels. So the monitoring, reporting and verification framework brings the transparency about the process. It inspires trust in the city government and its commitment to improving air quality. As a part of the project, we have prepared a guidance document on development of monitoring, reporting and verification framework by looking into the experiences of CCAC, European countries, other Asian countries, and on the basis of a multiple stakeholder consultations that are being conducted with the urban local bodies and the State Pollution Control Board in these 4 cities. Further, this monitoring, reporting and a verification framework can be customized for the other Indian cities, and in my opinion, it can be used even internationally also in the other cities with a bit of customization. Under outcome 3, under the project, we have carried out a number of awareness initiatives, and we are proud to say that collectively we have sensitized around 0.32 million citizens in these 4 cities. Further detail about the awareness initiatives, my colleague Neha would be sharing in the later part of the session. The project work is still going on, and we are looking forward to the support from all the relevant stakeholders of the project. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now we look forward to getting a sense of what's happening in China. And so may I request Ms. Ying to give us her assessment of the Clean Air Action Program in China. She's with the Swiss Embassy in Beijing and so is well located to give us a feel of the program and what's happened and what's happening. Please.
So good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah,
I'm Zhang Ying.
Welcome.
Hello.
We can all hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Zhang Ying from International Cooperation Division of Swiss Embassy in Beijing, and I'm very honored to attend today's thematic track group and have the opportunity to exchange with you and present our Signal Swiss Clean Air project supported by Beijing Office of Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Okay, so maybe I need your help for the second slide. Yeah, so the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So firstly, I would like to give a brief background introduction of our project. As we know, the air pollution is also a major environmental issue in China and pose a threat to the Chinese public health. In recent years, Chinese government has made strong efforts to reduce air pollution by implementing important national air pollution control policies. For example, in 2012, China issued a revised air quality standard. Then in 2015, the government enacted a revised air pollution prevention and control law. And the National Clean Air action plan between 2013 and 2017 defined 10 actions to improve the air quality in key regions. Then from 2018, Chinese government released a 3-year Blue Sky Action Plan. So with these strong policies, Chinese cities have had some notable success over the last decade in reducing air pollution. And now the focus of air pollution control in China is the crisis air pollution management. Okay, thank you. So next slide. Now I would like to give a quick review on our previous Sino-Swiss cooperation in the clean air sector during 2010 to 2016. This project worked on 3 levels to improve the air quality. So legislation, supporting policies and regulations, and measures and actions. For example, the cooperation supported the revision of and enforcement of China's air pollution prevention and control law, and helped the pilot cities formulating their clean air action plans. The cooperation also piloted the pioneering diesel particle filter technologies in economically developed cities, including the capital Beijing and the 2 cities in the south of China, Nanjing and Xiamen. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so China now is in the phase of precise air pollution management, as I mentioned. So most Chinese cities urgently need research and technologies for prediction of air pollution events, analysis of potential health impacts, and cost-efficient response measures. So this requires a good understanding of the pollution profiles and emission inventories, observation and the monitoring of air pollution process, and identify the dominating polluting source, etc. So under this background, in 2019, SDC China initiated a new project on air pollutant source apportionment based on the success of a previous Sino-Swiss cooperation. So source apportionment is a technique used to understand different sources of air pollution particles. It identifies the particles that contribute to air pollution and analyze where they come from. And Switzerland is a leading country in this field. So next slide. Okay. Overall, this project tried to use a combination of most advanced online monitoring instruments to develop a new receptor model. This model is based on the Swiss experience and adjusts to the characteristics of Chinese air pollution. So it will enable online and real-time source apportionment analysis to meet the urgent need of air pollution emergency response in Chinese cities. So from a strategic level, the source apportionment methods will help the cities to elaborate short-term air pollution emergency response, long-term air pollution reduction measures, and health impacts evaluation. Okay, so next slide. The project goal is by supporting the development of advanced air pollution source apportionment techniques to enable the design of more effective air pollution control policies, then reduce significantly the air pollution in key Chinese cities, improve people's health and well-being, and share the experience with the neighboring countries. Also, so next slide. Regarding the expected outcomes for this project, we expect our project could achieve outcomes from 4 aspects. So firstly, for source apportionment level, we hope the capacity of Chinese to do accurate air polluted source apportionment is improved. And second, we hope Chinese cities better understand their air pollution profiles through updated air pollutant emission inventories. And for policy influencing level, we hope more effective air pollution control policies are designed and implemented. And finally, for the regional and the global outreach, we hope the project knowledge and experience will be shared at regional and global level. Okay, so next slide. So right now, I would like to introduce our project partners. So we have, from Swiss side, we have two partners. The first is Paul Sherry Institute, so called PSI. This research institute has advanced knowledge in analyzing air pollutant chemical components. The second partner is the ETHZ, so it has years of cooperation with China in the air pollution sector. And the Chinese partner is the Institute of Earth Environment in Xi'an, in the city of Xi'an. And for the project dissemination level, we try to facilitate the experience sharing with international organizations and networks working on air pollution. So for example, like our SDC Global Network, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, Clean Air Asia, etc. And we will also have more exchange with our SDC India office, also about the to share the experience also with them about the similar project in India. Okay, so next slide. Our project selected 6 pilot cities. So first, 3 cities located in the key Jing-Jin-Ji region. Beijing, Shijiazhuang, Langfang. So Beijing is the capital of China. Shijiazhuang is one of China's most heavily polluted cities. And Langfang is a prefectural level city near Beijing. And we chose another city is Xi'an in the Fengwei Plain in northwest China. This is a key region for national air pollution control. And we also selected 2 cities in South China without district heating in wintertime. So the central city, Wuhan, and the most populated province level city, Chongqing. Okay, next slide. So regarding the policy influence level, we take the city of Xi'an, for example, with the generation of preliminary source apportionment results in the city. The project provided valuable policy recommendations to local government. For example, the project provided the guidance for emergency actions against heavy haze episodes and organized consultation meetings and special trainings to design and implement air pollution control strategies and policies. Okay, next slide. So for next stage, our project will further investigate and evaluate the health impacts of air pollution. The ROS indicates approach we will use, so focus on the short-term effects and might be used to estimate the impact of pollution episodes on the daily mortality. So finally, I would like to say this is the 3rd year of our Clean Air China project, and the scientific research is still going on. It will generate more results for different pilot cities in the future to communicate with local municipalities for better policy making. This project will also continue to actively exchange and share the project results and the experience with neighboring countries that are also facing air pollution issues. So, okay, so that's all from my side, and I look forward to more exchange with you in the future. Thanks for your attention, and I wish all of you a nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I have gained a lot in these few minutes, and I do look forward to greater exchanges and experience sharing between your program in China and the program in India. May I now request Dr. Valentin Fortescue from the UNEP Clean Air Coalition program to give us the benefit of his insights and knowledge. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon from Delhi, representing here the Climate and Clean Air Coalition and its secretariat, as well as UN Environment Program. Good afternoon and good morning to some of you, and good evening also, because this is broadcasted internationally. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about our or share with you about our approach to working with cities to promote clean air and to support the cities in their endeavors for better air quality for their citizens. A little bit of introduction, so I will share my presentation, just give me 1 second. A little bit of introduction to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which is was established 10 years ago. We celebrate 10 years next month, and is in support of integrated air pollution and climate change action. I'm saying integrated and collective at the same time, because we are working at the commonality between air pollution and climate change. Obviously, we are working to address the short-lived climate pollutants, but at the same time, some of these pollutants are traditional air pollutants. I'm talking about black carbon, I'm talking about ground level ozone, and the methane, which is a precursor to ground level ozone, which is toxic to our environment. I'm also talking about all the other pollutants, all the short-lived and the long-lived climate pollutants, since we are also taking a whole atmosphere approach to the work that we are doing, and I will come to that in a minute. We have a very large network that has grown into more than 400 governments, international intergovernmental organizations, also financial institutions, and of course the civil society organizations, and also private partners or private sector actors. Working across the sectors has been central to our work. So you see here which sectors are the main focus of the coalition activities. But we are also working with all the dimensions that are relating to health, action planning, but both national, as you can see there, the SNAP supporting national action planning, but also city action planning and regional action planning. The finance dimension, because our partners also need to have guidance on where to access the resources that are needed for implementation. And last but not least, the assessments, which are crucial. And I said before that the assessments are taking a one atmosphere approach. Activities are various types, from technology demonstrations and capacity building, providing expert assistance, science and research, and then of course supporting the development of regulations, laws and policies, but also political outreach and awareness. And our model for action in cities, and I will come to that in a minute, is about providing evidence, competency, creating competency and capacity or enhancing those, providing communication and incentivizing action. And the awareness that we are proposing or we are creating through the Breathe Life campaign is also an important chapter in our work. So working in partnership is of course central, and how do you work with cities? You cannot work in isolation, because this has been the problem of taking action that we have seen around the world, and we have been trying to address by working together. So it goes without saying that since we are a coalition also of partners, that we are taking in any single project that we are taking, we are working in a very coordinated manner with partners. In this case, within the Urban Health Initiative, we are engaging the health sector to realize climate and health benefits, and we are doing so together with the partners that you can see here. So the importance of taking action in cities is of course something that is very complex and multi-sectoral, and we have heard a lot about the source attribution of the concentrations. So how the emissions do translate into concentrations that create exposure to the air pollution problems. So air pollution is, as a result, is also a complex phenomenon. So a nexus approach is then needed to tackle pollution in most cities. The challenges for us is, of course, the complicated landscape that you can see around the world of actors that, if they are not well coordinated, that is leading to long lead times. That is, very impairing, so to say, the actions that needs to be taken. And then, of course, there are implementation inefficiencies in various systems. So we are trying to address all of that. The benefits, of course, are huge. The healthy people and the ecosystems that will benefit, and of course, higher crop yields, for instance, by reducing tropospheric ozone, and also the climate co-benefits. So our approach to this is starting with literally from we envisage that in all cases that we are working with cities, we have 6 phases of work that we really have to systematically go through and do it very rigorously. So the first thing to do is, of course, to map the stakeholders and the policies that are impacting the urban environment. And that is also including mapping all the relevant stakeholders, and also identify the expected health impacts and also the gaps in ability to collect comprehensive data that support policy actions. We also consider here the needs, the perceptions, the socioeconomic realities of the communities that are being impacted. Secondly, we have identified that the building capacity for effective management and engagement is central. In this case, we have identified the health sector and the health actors as a very important target for building these competencies and capacities. So we are training the health actors at the policy, program, and service delivery levels to engage in cross-sectoral policy-making processes. We believe that the health actors are key in this work. We also conduct relevant health analysis and communicate those effectively, both with the public and also with the policymakers, and also the plans that should be considered and their relationships between economic development, mitigation, and health and well-being. Third is the tools. Tools are also central, and because they need to be available to assess the health and the economic impact of policies, and they also need to be, in some cases, developed, but in most cases, they are already there, they are accessible, they just need to be adapted and applied. Fourth is the scenarios, the alternative scenarios and the policy options that are being tested. This is very important because this is where we are using the tools to test different alternative solutions, and also to identify the preferred policy scenarios and interventions. This will also help us quantify health impacts, both co-benefits and the cost of inaction, and also of the intervention itself. And also, this will help us conduct a cost effectiveness and cost benefit analysis. So for us, going to the stage of developing city level action plans, strategies, and roadmaps is only following after step 4. Fifth is about urban leaders being engaged to communicate the cost of inaction and creating awareness, and also to provide all the health and economic arguments to spur policymakers to act. And then 6 is developing a monitoring framework and tracking mechanism, and this was also covered by other speakers, which is very important to measure the policy change impact and the results that the various city initiatives are producing. So I have more details about these 5 steps, but since the time is limited, I would like just to mention that we have applied this model very successfully, and the city of Accra in Ghana has become, for us, for our international community, I would say, a role model for other cities. And I would kindly invite you to find these resources that are there about the project that we have run in Accra for several years now. And we can see the project bearing fruit now, including in the development of action plans and how these plans are being implemented. And that has also spurred development of very innovative action plans also at the national level, and better integration between air pollution and climate change policies. Other resources for cities, I would like to point here to the urban health initiatives that is hosted by our partner WHO. Again, a very important resource where you can see links to the products that have been developed under that initiative. And then last but not least, the resources provided under the Climate and Clean Air Coalition webpage. You see the resources action, which is basically the solution center, which provides an extensive library of tools, information, and also the expert assistance service under the Climate and Clean Air Coalition that can support countries and cities to undertake actions on air pollution and climate change. I also have, if this presentation will be shared, I have 2 very motivating, I would say, presentations about the work in Accra and also about the Urban Health Initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we do look forward to going in depth into what you've done in Accra and what has happened there. And now over to the next part of the program.
Thank you, sir, for moderating the session, and to all the panelists for sharing their experiences and insights with us. I would now like to invite Ms. Neha, Senior Fellow, TERI, to kindly take us through the engagement activities with schools and colleges planned in CAP India project. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Pooja. It will be my pleasure to share more details about the outcome 3, which is on awareness. I hope my slide is visible. The campaign for Blue Sky is a campaign which we have devised for the student level engagement. The objective of this campaign is to train the various stakeholders through these students, that is from the schools and colleges, and involve various stakeholders like city residents, RWA members, officials of state pollution control boards, through both on-ground and online communication channels, so as to create awareness on project activities and facilitate engagement, capacity building, and further training of these stakeholders. The 3 main key elements of this communication strategy is involvement at city level, stakeholder level, and project level. Under this Blue Sky campaign, we will be focusing more on the stakeholder level, with engaging the students at schools and colleges. It has a series of activities that has been planned, varying from a grand mela, Let My City Breathe, that will involve intergenerational learning, showcase of talents, providing technical solutions in form of hackathons, creative presence, so as to create a green city and also to reach out to the unreached. Also, these students will be involved to create awareness at resident welfare associations and the community people through small get-togethers. This will involve chai pe charcha, nukkad natak, screening of movies, and even interaction, facilitating the interaction with the experts and the medical practitioners. Moreover, the school students will also be involved to create a green campus, and they will be provided with green report cards for the various school competitions that will be organized at school levels through project website that will be launched soon, and the winners will get the opportunity to visit some exotic places. To start with that, we are announcing a new set of competitions for schools and college students. These competitions are being organized as a prelude to the high-level students' engagement that has been planned for the upcoming months. We have Green Campus Challenge with the focus on clean air for school students. In this competition, the students from classes 6 to 12 can participate across project locations, that is Kanpur, Lucknow, Nasik and Pune, where the students will demonstrate their out-of-box thinking, informative and creative solutions targeted towards contributing to clean air, or they can even share the initiatives that needs to be abandoned which contributes towards air pollution. Whereas the college students will be involved through a competition Frame the Change photography contest where they will be sharing a storyline using 4 to 5 photographs. The more details about these competitions and the guidelines can be uh, looked at from our Facebook page, that is Clean Air Project in India, and you can follow our project activities that are there for other levels, the city levels and the project level. With this, I would like to now share the list of winners who have the winners of Observance Fest on combating air pollution. I would like to mention that we had announced this particular competition for the primary school students, that is the students from classes 1 to 5, that is the students within the age bracket of 6 to 10 years. So here are the list. Under the category Be Selective, Be Creative competition, the third prize goes to Sanvi Swapnil from class 2, Podar International School, Nasik. Second goes to Prakhar Shukla, class 2, Awadh Public Inter College, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. The first prize goes to Alina Singh, class 3rd, City Montessori School, Aliganj, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. We had a second set of competition, Take an Interview. This is in this the students were to interact with the on the issues with their grandparents and the citizens across various generations. The second prize goes to Ritwij Sauji from class 2, Pudar International School, Nasik, Maharashtra. First prize goes to Arohi Agarwal, class 5, Puran Chand Vidyaniketan, Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh. Under the category Write a Poem, second prize goes to Virat Bajpai, class 2, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh from Awadh Public School. And the first prize goes to Habib Sayed from class 2, Pudar International School, Nasik, Maharashtra. Congratulations to all the winners, and we request you to please stay tuned to our Facebook page to know more details about it. With this, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Neha, for your detailed and informative presentation. We will now move towards the second session of the event, which focuses on clean air action, linkages between air quality and human health, and tools needed to bring behavioral changes in the community to reduce the impact of air pollution. I would like to invite Dr. Pradipto Ghosh, Distinguished Fellow, the Energy and Resources Institute, to kindly start the proceeding of the session. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. I think there is some kind of connectivity issues in Dr. Ghosh's end. So I would just like to continue with the second session. May I, and Dr. Pradipta Ghosh can join us in few minutes. May I please welcome Professor Archana Kumar, Behavioral Change Expert, Associate Professor, Lady Irwin College, to please come and share her remarks.
Thank you, thank you. A good afternoon to everybody. It's thank you for inviting me and the organizers of the thematic track. I'm very happy to be here, and it's always a pleasure listening to everybody. And I think I would like to begin from what everybody has been saying. I think what Dr. Shankar very rightly said is that today we need to map out the pathways of change. Definitely, we can see macro level shifts have started taking place in the context of air pollution, but it is at the micro level, the more granular understanding that we need to now have understand, so that we can cause the kind of shifts that we need to bring about that radical change that we need to see in air pollution that we are all experiencing. Listening to my speakers before me, clearly everybody is talking about the fact that there is clear evidence that nobody can doubt it, that there is air pollution. I think every single citizen all over the world is now experiencing and understanding. People in villages are understanding. People in Delhi, I think, understand this so well, that there is air pollution. So there's no doubt about this. There is no doubt that it is impacting our health. This correlation, scientists, doctors have established well, and most importantly, people are experiencing. They know it, they can feel it, and we don't need more evidence. But what we now need is, what is it that we can do to prevent this? Our people, what they are facing, they need to have that control in their hand, that what can I do to bring about that change? And this is where I think we need to have a much more nuanced understanding of what do we mean when we are talking about behavior change communication in the context of air pollution. And I find, and some of my very good deliberations that just happened clearly pointed out that this is a highly complex, we call it a wicked problem. It is a very layered problem. It has multiple stakeholders. It has multiple aspects that are contributing to it. So developing a strategy of change is not going to be a very simple thing. And that is why when I look at the action plans, I think there is now a time that we need to have a nested theory of change, where we need to look at different stakeholders and we need to try and understand what is the change and what is the logic, the theory of change that we are going to have to bring about so that the pollution levels can come down, air pollution levels. And it is in that context. So I hope TERI and other think tanks will come together and create this larger nested model of theory, the logic of change. And within this, we need to position what do individuals and citizens need to do so that it can contribute to the larger game of things. I think that's my first request to all policymakers, that we need to get together. We cannot work in isolation. We need to get together and we need to understand this. But also right now, I would like to share some insights from the field of behavior change communication that is going to be critical for helping us organize activities and planning out our strategies of change. And I think the first and foremost thing we need to understand is that people, how they behave and what they do, it is not related to one set of factors, but it is because of a multiple set of factors that come into play. And we call it the socio-ecological approach, that there are multiple layers of rings that envelope and influence why people do what they do. And largely they are determined by their context, the cultural norms that exist, the power structures and control people have in their hands. The more we understand air pollution and what people are doing that is contributing to air pollution in the context of what I'm saying right now, you will then understand the nuances of what needs to be done to facilitate the change that we have. That is why what behavior change communication says is that we need to work at not one, but at multiple levels. And they recognize three core aspects that we need to focus on. A, we need to focus on people, and we need to understand what are the barriers and what are the reasons they do and they don't do what we want them to do. The second is, can we create an enabling environment that can facilitate people doing? So I might want to do it. I might understand I need to do it, but I'm not doing it because of the fact that the environment, the external environment is not facilitative, it is not conducive, so the change will not happen despite my wanting to do it. And the third is the policy advocacy level that we need to work in, where decision makers, policy makers, everybody needs to converge and they need to also support the change. So until and unless we dialogue about these issues, until and unless we all come back on the same plane and we advocate the same thing, we will not see any kind of shifts happening. So this is key. So since I have very limited time, I will only like to now talk about some what I call as the levers of change. What are the levers we need to keep in mind? So when I was just listening to the presentation as to the kind of campaign that has been running in the 3 cities, I can well understand what is happening, but I would like to know also what was the logic of doing those activities. How do those activities build up to the change that we desire? The more we can create that logic, the more we have these streamlined, the better we will know what we are doing, we will be able to monitor it, and we will be able to evaluate and demonstrate the change that is taking place. So when I talk of the levers of change, what am I talking about? For me, the first and foremost lever is that when we talk of behavior change and influence, we must understand that persuasion is not a merely transference of information. Yes, information is important. So when we talk of any message that has to go out, yes, there is an informational side of the message. That is, we need to know and what we need to tell people so that they can change their behaviors. They should know what they have to do. But the second more important aspect also linked to this, which cocoons the informational aspect, is what I call as the aspect of trust and certitude that needs to be also kept in mind when we are designing our messages. Why? Because the more messages, the meaning that gets conveyed is linked to the credibility of the message and the trust we are able to build around it. So when we talk of communications, when we design our interventions, we need to think of the message per se, but we also need to think of how can we build trust and how can we communicate in a manner that we are able to make people feel comfortable, confident about what is being advocated to them. So for that, it is important that people engage, they participate, and they have greater ownership and control over what is the information that is being given to them. If they don't engage, if it is a one-way process where we are just dictatorial in our approach that do this, do that, it is not going to happen. So participation is key, engagement is key, building ownership is key to behavior change communication. The second most important thing in terms of levers is that we have to have clarity. What is the behavior change that we desire? What in the end do we want people to do? We did a very interesting study where we looked at air quality apps, and we asked people that during the months of October, November, did you use these apps? Did they help you to cope with the situation? They said, yeah, we got to know, but we didn't know what to do. Okay, the air pollution level is this, then what are we supposed to do? So communication has to be linked with information that is relevant. It is in the context of people's lives. It has to guide them into what they need to do so that they can act and then they can move forward. The second important thing is that it's important that we look at incentives, and we need to incentivize, and we need to look at what are the costs and how can we decrease costs, and how can we incentivize so that we can motivate people to work in a particular way. So looking at this incentive structure that has to be juxtaposed with people's behaviors has to be looked at very carefully. It has to be very nuanced, and it has to also be based on a lot of good research that has to tell us what are the reasons, and that could be the real incentives that people might be working in a particular way. And the third aspect that I really want to talk today about is about what we call as nudges and changing the choice architecture. And today, in almost every field of, we are talking about nudging people towards acting in a particular way. The whole field of behavioral economics has clearly shown us that there are ways in which we can get people to cajole them to do things without them not really knowing about it. So it's very, very important that we understand how these nudges can be facilitated and positioned within our campaigns so that people can be motivated to behave in a particular way. So when we talk of these nudges are nothing else except basically how we present alternatives to people, what are the choices we are presenting to people, and how do we communicate messages now to people so that they are more simplified and they understand the value of what is happening. They also prompt people at the right time to behave. So whether it is throwing garbage in the dustbin, can we have certain stickers, or can we have a prompt that the moment a person looks at that prompt, they know what they have to do and it just cajoles them to do that. So all over in almost every facet, we are talking about these nudges and how these nudges can influence people and to behave in a particular way. In the end, I just want to say that the complex field of looking at behavioral alternatives in the field of air pollution requires stakeholders to come together and develop these theories of change that need to be intermeshed, which can then through which more creative and innovative ideas of participatory communications can be applied so that people would be willing to partake in them and to be able to adopt these. It's a journey that requires people to come together, and our researches and our experiments that we have been carrying out have clearly indicated and pointed that participatory communications where people who are the final clients have to be at the center stage of designing these campaigns and to partake in these. Only then can we hope to bring about change. I'll rest my case there, but there is a lot of work that we need to do, and we need everybody to come together to work towards that change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very insightful. I think Dr. Ghosh is still having connectivity issues, so I would like to hand over to Dr. Anju Goyal to moderate the rest of the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pooja. Now I would like to introduce Professor Anant Mohan. He's a professor at AIIMS. Very good afternoon, sir. Sir, we would like to know from you, like, what are the threats do air pollution represent for population, and can people protect themselves from air pollution? What policy suggestions would you recommend for the same? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here, and I think a very important session and some very important ideas have been put forward in the last several minutes. Your question is again regarding air pollution and the health effects of air pollution. As already has been pointed out, now we really don't need too much of evidence regarding the benefits or the regarding the benefits of reducing air pollution and the ill effects of increasing air pollution. We have enough evidence that it impacts the poor air quality, impacts almost every system of the body in some or the other way. Of course, the respiratory system remains paramount because it is directly in contact with the atmosphere. But on the other hand, it is even for example, the skin surfaces, the eyes, the mucous membranes, the upper respiratory tract, which are in direct contact with the atmosphere are the ones which are maximally at risk. But even internally, after exposure on a long-term basis, chronic exposure, several major health effects may be seen which are slowly developing, and it may be very difficult to directly ascribe that this is only because of air quality and nothing else. For example, vascular diseases like strokes, indirectly coronary artery diseases or heart attacks, then neurological deficiencies in old age, early onset of dementia, sleep disturbances. All these have been found to be directly correlated to the poor air quality existing at that point of time, and that has its other effects. So all these have got other effects. Hence, there is nothing, there is absolutely no question that we have to now take major steps. Minor steps, I think the time has gone. It is now time to take major steps in the direction of reduction of air pollution. Now, this, to my mind, can be done at various levels. It can be done at somewhat at the individual level. It can be done a little bit at the family level, somewhat at the kind of colony level or the community level. And then the major role will be at the population level, at the public health level, at the policy level, at the legislative level, or at the administrative level, so as to speak. So at the local level, the only thing that people can do is to kind of save themselves from the ill effects. They cannot, it is difficult for them to make major changes in the air quality on their own. They can only try to keep their vicinity clean, prevent, throwing garbage out which can be scattered, and also, so these kind of small things can be taken out at the individual level, and same thing at the colony level as well. But the major thing would be at the administrative and the public health level. We know the 4 or 5 major causes of air pollution are rampant urbanization, rampant constructions, especially in the, not just in the cities, but now everywhere, rampant unsupervised constructions, a lot of dust being thrown around. The workers are maximally at risk over there, lack of any precautions or any guidelines being followed in spite of there being guidelines existing. Then it is the traffic pollution, vehicular pollution, the road dust in the cities. Then of course there may be other problems. For example, the smoke from burning crops, etc., which is coming from neighboring states in some areas. So 5 or 6 major causes are there which contribute to bad air quality. In the villages, it may be the burning of chula and the wood gas within the rooms, within the the kind of rooms which are very ill ventilated, and ladies cook in those situations, so they are exposed. The health effects, respiratory, are the most dangerous, I would say. That is leading to impairment of lung functions, lung volumes, frequent diseases like chronic asthma, chronic obstructive airway disease, lung cancer, etc. So I would say the time really has come to step up, take it on a war footing, take it on a very urgent footing now, because although there have been a lot of steps have been taken, no doubt it has been, and there is no doubt about it, but still, as you can see, air quality continues to remain in the poor to severe category. The number of days statistically may be a little bit better in the last 2-3 years, predominantly because or partially because of the lockdown. But still a lot of work has to be done. We need to take major steps in that direction, I would say, on a long-term basis. I think that, to my mind, are my thoughts. If there are any questions, I'll definitely be happy to answer.
I think Dr. Ghosh is back. Sir, you're muted.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
My apologies for for my bad internet connection, and I'm thankful to thankful to the organizers for taking this forward when I couldn't connect. So let me thank Professor Anant Mohan for his excellent presentation and giving the details of the impacts of air pollution on human health. And now I invite Mr. Ashish Tiwari. He's Secretary, Department of Environment, Forests and Climate Change in the government of Uttar Pradesh. So, Mr. Tiwari, you have the floor. And could I request you to restrict your presentation to 5 minutes because we are running out of time.
Thank you, sir. It's my absolute privilege to share with you the UP experience, which is, I always say that it's not an estate, but it's a country. And the problem which we face in UP, whether it is a field of climate change or air pollution, is definitely is the whole gamut of problem where a very concrete solution has to be found out. We have 17 non-attainment cities, one of the maximum non-attainment cities in India, and I feel when we implement the action plans that somewhere we lack in knowledge of emission sources. Because so far as we heard Dr. Gupta from CPCB in the previous session, that our approach was basically about the city-based approach. Like under the directions of CPCB, the city emission inventories, source apportionment inventories, and then city-based action plans, this strategy was adopted. And it's now over 2 years, despite our best of efforts in the cities, the pollution levels are not coming down. So that is why UP state, being a pioneer in adopting the airshed approach, and we believe that unless the whole airshed and particularly the micro airshed of the city is taken up for study of emission sources and actions thereupon, the air pollution of cities is not going to be solved. So now we need to little bit change our strategy towards airshed rather than going for city-based approach. This is what we feel, and we have now started implementing. The second major challenge is also the financial resources. The UP has done an assessment of the total cost of the action plans, city action plans, and the resources which are available directly or through convergence from all sources. You would be surprised that if we talk in totality, that only 30 to 40% resources are available for implementation of action plans. So the resource is also going to be a big challenge. Of course, 7 million plus cities have been supported by 15 Finance Commission, but taken into account that also the resources are not up to the mark for implementation of city action plans. Then here comes a major policy intervention, that from where the resources will come. As Dr. Mohan also pointed out, that now it's a time to take up really big actions. We have been doing everything, but now the time has come that a big action has to be taken. So the resource is going to be the biggest limitation. We feel that since the resources are not up to the mark for implementation of action plans, then we must prioritize our activities, our actions, so that with the same amount of resource, the maximum reduction of pollutant can be achieved. I am just indicating towards the implementation of gains model for implementation of action plan and prioritizing the various actions which are enlisted in our action plans. So now the question comes on knowledge front, that there has to be a well-researched airshed based inventory action plan, and then there has to be a well-researched selective actions, priority actions, which needs to be taken up immediately. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Vibha Dhawan, that we must understand that the air pollution cannot be curtailed, cannot be controlled as a drop of the hat, but we have to take up the long-term solutions. The only approach which will yield result is how to fast track the long-term interventions. I will take example of the crop residue burning in the state of Punjab, Haryana, and part of Uttar Pradesh also. All through we have been finding solutions of first creating problem just to create just to generate the parali, and to then to get rid of it by various farm implements, in situ, ex situ, etc. But the real solution lies in crop diversification, and the root cause of this particular problem, the availability of surface water, which earlier was it was based upon groundwater irrigation. But when groundwater litigation was enacted in the state of Punjab and Haryana, the cropping time shifted from May to June, thereby leaving a very small window for wheat sowing, paddy harvesting and wheat sowing. So now we need to come up with long-term solution of crop diversification. I would always say why the rice to Bihar would come from Punjab. We need to select the areas where the impacts of air pollution could be minimized, like coastal areas. Coastal rice could cater our food security, but in Punjab we should have much diversified crops. And the amount of amount in subsidy and other support which has been already spent should have gone for very upfront crop diversification incentives, so that at least in the areas where surface water is not available, the crop diversification would have taken place in a very fast-tracked mode. And wherever surface water is available, the sowing could be as early in the month of May, so that the crop residue burning could not take place, because it provides a larger window for decomposition of farm residues. Then the few more issues which we are facing and trying to find out solution is, right now, if the action plan is implemented, the very prominent issue is of governance and addressing and monitoring of all pollution sources. Like if I talk about the city of Ghaziabad and, for instance, city of Lucknow, the pollution sources which are to be monitored is somewhere around 20 to 25,000. So it's not possible that physically we can monitor these sources. So the best thing is to have a virtual kind of monitoring, IoT-based monitoring, where 24/7 real-time monitoring of sources can be taken place. And the UP state has come out with a very comprehensive universal air quality monitoring tool, by which the monitoring of pollution sources can be done in a virtual mode 24/7. So that will also improve the issues of governance. And then question comes about the coordination. There are 17 agencies and departments which actually implement the action plan, and it's a very diverse kind of system of implementation of agencies, where we need to have a very robust monitoring structure, maybe at a level of 3 tiers, one at the district level, other is the state level, maybe the last at the chief secretary level. So these are the issues if we take up, then definitely. Then last question is, like, if it is a question of air pollution in NCR, the whole NCR planning board must come out with a policy for siting of air polluting industries in NCR region. All air polluting industries should not come up, at least in future, to the upwind direction of the prominent wind flow. So these are some issues we need to, we are at a juncture where we need to little bit realign our strategy and come out with more effective long-term solutions, and we need to focus how long-term solutions can be fast-tracked to yield permanent results. The last thing is in Western and Indo-Gangetic plains, the PM10 should not be taken as a monitorable parameter for air pollution, because it is mostly geogenic. It should be like under 15 Finance Commission and National Clean Air Program, the PM10 reduction target has been given, but most of the PM10 is not anthropogenic. It should be PM2.5, which Dr. Mohan will also agree with me, which have more health impacts and is more anthropogenic. So these are few issues which we are facing and trying to find out solutions. for providing better air quality to the larger population in Indo-Gangetic Plains in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tiwari, for your insightful account of the proactive actions being taken in the state of Uttar Pradesh to address issues of air pollution, and for your very interesting observations on the genesis through policy failures of the problem of crop residue burning. Now I would give the floor to Ms. Prarthana Borah. She is Director of the India Carbon Disclosure Project. So Ms. Borah, you have the floor. So, we'll be grateful, since we're running out of time, if you could keep your remarks to within 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Ghosh, and thank you, TERI, for inviting me. I want to bring in a different perspective. I work for CDP, and CDP primarily works in carbon disclosure and with the industry community as well as with cities. So I want to bring in a different perspective from a macro level in terms of how we need to leverage this clean air action on the ground. And primarily my points of discussion would be focusing on the climate and clean air co-benefit, plus also to look at how certain other new areas can be working on to leverage this clean air action. So I think I want to start with not just not NCAP. So I've been asked to talk a bit about policy, so I don't want to focus too much on NCAP because there's a lot already been said. So what I would like to talk about is policy from a source perspective. So when I say source perspective, let me start first with energy. Now, energy we know is central to the air pollution and climate crisis, and energy-related fuel consumption accounts for NOx, SOx, and PM 2.5 levels, as well as it also accounts for it's the largest contributor to CO2 emissions. So I think energy needs to be our focus when we talk about reducing air pollution emissions, and also we know that India accounts for at least 1/4 of the energy global energy demand. So how do we look at energy is something that we need to figure out, especially from the perspective of timing and technology. And when I say timing and technology, I want to bring into focus, the recent statements made by the Prime Minister at COP26, as well as, the budget, which focuses a lot on renewable energy transitions and with a focus on solar. But and we're all looking at energy transition, but when we talk about energy, we also need to talk about, the emission standards and how strong the emission standards are, as well as energy efficiency. And I just want to bring in one small example. Now, captive power plants rely primarily on coal, and if they continue to rely on coal, I mean, for the next couple of years, in spite of relying on coal, if we have enhanced emission standards, we would achieve a lower level of emissions, despite being, dependent on coal. And if we add to it a transition of, renewable energy, then we would actually bring down emissions to almost half of what it is in 2019. Now, the issue is, will we be able to achieve these enhanced emission standards? Because if we're not going to be able to achieve it, then we would, even with the new, the new ambition for renewable energy, we would still have, an increased emission. So I think it's important to look at policy from the perspective of not just renewable energy, but also how do we improve energy efficiency and how do we, enhance our emission standards. So I think the technology issue is very important, which is where I come to my second source in terms of addressing air pollution, where I want to bring in industry. Now, industry, we know that has been responsible for almost 4 times the GDP growth as far as India is concerned, and this is going to increase. So I think the role of industry in air pollution is going to be very important, because I think the energy is one issue, energy efficiency is one issue, but industry is also beginning to realize the importance of reducing emissions, whether it's from a CO2 perspective as well as air pollution perspective. So I think it's important to understand the involvement of energy and involvement of industry, especially in the energy efficiency, as well as looking at clean technology to promote this whole area of reducing emissions. My third point, as far as source is concerned, is transportation. Now we all know that 40% of transportation emissions, NOx and PM 2.5, is due to transportation, and this was as per the 2019 study of TERI, and we also know that implementing existing policies and fuel standards will actually lead to NOx peaking by 2025, but it will also then start falling by 60% by 2040. But again, we have to look at the other side, where we also have an increasing demand for road transport. And that means that we will have an increasing demand for vehicular, for vehicles, on-road vehicles. And also we would have the indirect emissions that are related to the power sector, as well as the manufacturing of vehicles. So I think, again, when we talk about policy for air pollution, I think there's a need to look at policies that are correlated to not just transportation, but also to manufacturing, as well as the city, because the city is going to be very important in terms of the design of the city, as well as how we, how the city designs a system where we can rely on non-motorized transport more than vehicles. So when we talk about the electric vehicle policy, is it the only policy that is going to support reduced emissions from air pollution, or do we also integrate it with city policies which would enable the transition to non-motorized transport? Is something that we really need to think about. Now, finally, I want to come to how do we do this alignment? How do we align these different policies? And I think one of the areas that has not been tapped enough as far as air is concerned is the Sustainable Development Goals, because I think while we have a very important focus on development as far as the country goes, and at the same time we need to look at reduced air pollution levels, I think the Sustainable Development Goals need to be looked at when we are talking about reducing air pollution, reducing emissions from air pollution, of basically by focusing on some of these goals, which would help us to design a right kind of a policy within the city, and also design programs within cities which would be able to reduce emissions a large amount. So just to give you a quick overview, the SDGs, SDG 3, SDG 11, and SDG 13 does mention air pollution and the impact on health. And we know that there is a direct indicators as well as direct targets which relate to air in these three SDGs. But specifically speaking, SDG 11 talks, which is the SDG on city, does talk about air pollution reduction and the negative impact of air pollution on health. And if you look at correlating it to policy, most of the Indian policies like the Smart City Mission, the EV mission, the Urban Mission, PM's Ujjwala Yojana, Atal Mission, these all have some kind of a policy integration in terms of SDG 11 and can be linked to air pollution mitigation. But what we are not looking at is the addressing air pollution from a source perspective, and how do we actually bring in the SDG framework into it. So if you take the example of industry, for instance, industry as a source of air pollution, I think it's not just SDG 7, which talks about industry infrastructure, which actually has programs that can be defined in terms of reducing air pollution. But you can also look at SDG 3, which is the SDG on health, which can be linked to the industry aspects. There is SDG 11, again, with the cities and industry kind of an integration. There is also SDG 13, which talks about climate change and industry. So I think there is a whole area there where we look at the issue of reducing air pollution from a development perspective. If we look at deeper into the SDGs in terms of the indicators and the targets, and see how we could align some of these programs and policies which are already being defined for the SDGs, and look at how we can address air pollution. So I'll stop there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prarthana Borah. for your very wide-ranging presentation covering the entire field of energy, I must say, renewable energy, energy efficiency, transportation sector, and so on, and going all the way up to the SDGs. So thank you very much indeed. And now I would request our last speaker, Mr. Vikrant Gupta. He's Senior Executive Director, Editor in the TV Today network, and he will, I presumably, speak about the role of the media in promoting awareness of air pollution issues. So, Mr. Gupta, you have the floor. And could I request you to speak for just 5 minutes?
Sir, actually, he's not there. He's not there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So, well, actually, we have far exceeded the time assigned for this session. But in case we have maybe 5 or 7 minutes, maybe we could invite a couple of questions to the speakers from the participants. So are there any questions from the participants to any of the speakers? So we have Prabhat Sharma.
Sir, he's a chat moderator. He has posted few questions from the audience. Sir, the question is, are awareness program effective in producing sustained change in behavior for air pollution control?
Okay, so the obvious person to answer that is Professor Archana Kumar. So, Professor Kumar, would you like to take this question?
Yes, thank you. I think when we talk of awareness programs, so what I was actually trying to also say was that they cannot just be informational, but the information has to be positioned within what is the behavior we want to bring about a change in. So the strategy that we adopt for our awareness programs, what is our messaging, how do we involve people, what is our strategy, all these things then become components of a good awareness program. So awareness programs, if they are only, so, we have a very interesting model which we call as the ladder model, and just making informational aspects will not bring about change, but understand what are the barriers, and then positioning our information to address those barriers to cause the tipping point is what is going to bring about the change. So yes, awareness programs are important. They provide the relevant information, but we need to understand the context of people and why are they not practicing, and then position them there. That's when change will happen.
Yes, of course there are, but there are also perverse examples of such behavioral change brought about by people using tools of psychology, like Ed Bernays, who persuaded women to smoke because he successfully used images to convey that smoking indicates that they are in charge, that they're in control, and that they are that they are independent. So of course we must be very careful about the message. Not only what we want, the reasons for why we want the behavioral change, but the overall image that is conveyed. And I think one of the most successful behavioral changes that have been effected, I do not know whether it was conscious or it was not that well coordinated, but the whole question of social delegitimization of smoking. So smoking is no longer accepted social conduct, and I think that was a very successful campaign, and perhaps we will achieve the same result.
Sir, if I may add, and one of the reasons why these campaigns have been successful is that apart from the individual behavior, they are also creating an environment which I was talking about, which is very, very critical, that everybody comes together and creates an enabling environment for change to happen. And it has also been complemented by good legislation and policies. And when all three fall in place, that's when actually the change will be sustainable. And smoking is a very good example of how they have been able to do this. Thank you.
Right. Now we have a second question. How
so actually it's related to health, so I think Professor Mohan has already left.
He's already left, Professor Anant Mohan.
Right.
So I think we'll unfortunately have to not be able to take these questions, the second and third questions. So one more question from one of the participants.
Sir, there are no more questions.
There are no more questions. Okay, so let me at this point thank all our distinguished speakers, for their, presentations, for their very insightful, wide-ranging, and insightful presentations, and also the audience, also the participants in this session, for giving them a patient hearing. And of course, we had questions at the end, but we could only take just one or two. So thank you all very much indeed, and we would now like to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank